en relación a la importancia del inglés, en este caso en el área turística, ¿sí? Así es que, bueno, vamos a escucharlos.
Sí. ¿Qué tal? Mi nombre es Silvia Carolina Gómez Cornejo y soy egresada de la Licenciatura en Administración de Empresas Turísticas de la Universidad Estatal de Sonora. Y bueno, como el mismo nombre de la carrera nos los dice, turísticas, turismo implica interactuar con muchas personas, en su gran mayoría personas extranjeras. Entonces es una base primordial el poder contar con un segundo idioma, en este caso el idioma inglés, que actualmente es el idioma universal en el mundo. Yo personalmente tuve la oportunidad de poder comenzar a trabajarlo, a practicarlo en una edad temprana y claro está, en mi paso por la universidad pude perfeccionarlo muchísimo mejor porque conté con las herramientas necesarias para poder hacerlo y actualmente me ha servido, me ha abierto muchas puertas en el campo laboral también. Yo trabajo en un hotel y definitivamente la hotelería es una de las ramas del turismo en la cual muchísimo más necesitas un idioma así porque interactúas con muchísimas personas de todas partes. Entonces el contar con esta herramienta hace que tú no te sientas limitado, como comentaba anteriormente, te abre las puertas en el mundo laboral y sobre todo aprendes mucho de todas las personas con las que tú puedes platicar. Entonces mi recomendación para futuras generaciones sería que le den el interés debido a esta herramienta que crean no es trillado, realmente abre muchas puertas en muchas partes y sobre todo te da una satisfacción muy grande el poder comunicarte al 100% con otras personas, aprender de ellas, interactuar con ellas. Denle el interés, apasionense por esto, que es algo que les va a ayudar mucho en sus vidas.
Mi nombre es Ercilia Loera Anchondo, soy licenciada en Administración de Empresas Turísticas, egresé de la Universidad Estatal de Sonora y pues para mí ha sido muy importante el tener un segundo idioma porque me ha abierto las puertas en lo profesional y como ahora solo se contrata o se basa en contratar por competencias, pues te da bastante ventaja el tener un segundo idioma. Y pues para las futuras generaciones deberían de considerar el tener pues un segundo idioma en su currículum, ya que los enriquece y les da pues plusvalía al momento de elegirlos.
Soy José Rodolfo Bastidas Cota, alumno egresado de la Universidad Estatal de Sonora, en la Licenciatura de Administración de Empresas Turísticas. Para mí, haber adquirido el idioma inglés como segunda lengua ha sido muy satisfactorio e importante para mi desarrollo tanto personal como laboral, dentro del área que he desempeñado mis conocimientos. La hotelería es un sector dentro del cual es más manejable el idioma inglés para mantener esas relaciones públicas y crecimiento dentro de la misma empresa. Para las generaciones futuras de esta licenciatura o independientemente del estudio que elijan obtener, recomiendo ampliamente centrarse en lo que es este idioma para crecer no tanto profesional, sino personalmente, puesto que abre puertas y segmentos que como estudiantes no pensamos en ese espacio de clase.
Bueno, muchas gracias. Bueno, como acabamos de escuchar los testimonios en base a lo que es el idioma inglés, la importancia del inglés en el aspecto profesional, precisamente de eso se va a tratar estas pláticas, estas presentaciones que vamos a tener. Bueno, antes de empezar me gustaría presentar a invitados especiales que tenemos ahora. tenemos al doctor Julián Alvarez Hernández, coordinador de la Licenciatura de Turismo. Vamos a recibirlo con un aplauso, por favor. Y también se encuentra con nosotros el doctor Dallen Timothy de la Universidad Estatal de Arizona. Vamos a recibirlo también con un aplauso. Bueno, entonces lo que vamos a hacer ahora, chicos, es lo siguiente. Miren, se van a presentar dos equipos. Estos alumnos, los muchachos que van a presentar, son alumnos, les comentaba, de la Licenciatura de Enseñanza del Inglés, y van a presentar sus reportes de investigación. Son alumnos de la materia de seminario de tesis, y es el trabajo que han estado realizando a lo largo de 3 semestres. Ellos ya culminan su programa ahora en noviembre, y van a presentar sus reportes de investigación. Vamos a hacer la siguiente actividad juntos. Miren, en la primera presentación, en esta que van a estar a punto de presentar los estudiantes, ustedes tienen ahí ya hojas en sus lugares, y van a trabajar en parejas, por favor, ¿sí? Y conforme vaya transcurriendo la presentación, les voy a pedir que apunten el mayor número de palabras que ustedes conozcan en inglés, en base a esta presentación, ¿sí? Por favor. Entonces, saquen pluma, lápiz, y vamos a escuchar a los estudiantes de la Licenciatura en Enseñanza de Inglés. Adelante, por favor, chicas. Es una presentación corta de 15 minutos, ¿ok? Sí.
Okay, so good morning. How are you? Okay. Well, to begin, my name is Janet Sanchez. Okay, so as Ms. Ercilia commented, we are currently in the class of thesis, the last one. So we are going to present our research project, which is titled Promoting Bilingualism in Majors with Mandatory English Classes of Universidad Autónoma de Ciudad Juárez. Okay, as an introduction, we know that acquiring a second language is something essential when we're looking for a job, okay? So it is relevant requirement when you're looking in a position, and as you know, when you are looking for a job, the first requirement is knowledge of your area, the field that you're studying, and knowledge of English, a high level of English. So this present research provides an overview of the actual status of English in 3 majors that annex English in their curricular map as a mandatory subject in Universidad Autónoma de Ciudad Juárez. Okay, so we noticed that not all of the students that are studying or taking the classes of English from the communicative program are proficient enough in the language. So in the different majors that have English as a mandatory subject, students are required to take only 3 classes, or the 3 levels, as you know, of English. So they're not taking in account what Modelo Educativo 2020 demands. Also, students only attend mandatory English classes, and they do not have the opportunity to adapt what they are acquiring in the subjects or outside the classroom. Okay, so this leads us to have 3 research questions, which are: in what way professors of the majors of accountancy, administration, and tourism in Universidad Autónoma de Ciudad Juárez, Campus EU and Campus ICSA, are promoting bilingualism in their discipline-related subjects? And number 2, to what extent will students be motivated and willing to use the 4 skills in language learning in these types of subjects for professional purposes? You already know what are the 4 skills: reading, listening, speaking, and writing. Okay, so in number 3, what strategies can English teachers from the majors can adopt to develop willingness from students to use English in their other subjects? Okay, so as a delimitation, we are focused on Universidad Autónoma de Ciudad Juárez, as I mentioned, Campus EU and Campus ICSA, and we take in consideration majors of administration sciences as tourism, administration, and accountancy. Okay, we currently have 54 majors, okay, and 27 of them are the ones that have English as a mandatory subject. Okay, so can you go back, please? Thank you. And number 3, we are focused on students that are cursing the 3 levels of English: intermediate, basic, and advanced. Okay, and as well as teachers. 1 teacher per major and a coordinator per major. Okay.
Well, to present the theoretical framework of this research, I'm going to start with the 3 main concepts of our investigation, and the first one, it is bilingualism. We had different definitions from different authors of this concept. However, we decided to take the concept for Hammers and Blank in 2000 because it was the most accurate in this study. Hammers and Blank describe bilingualism as the quality of a learner learning and use 2 languages at the same time. They also describe a bilingual person as a person that can that acquire the second language, of course, after the first one. The second concept is willingness to communicate, which is described from as the readiness to use the second language inside and outside the classroom. And this can include or involve discourse with very specific people in a particular time. Also, this can be influenced by self-confidence and motivation of the learner. The number 3, the third concept to describe, it is strategies to teach, which is described as different teaching ways that professors implement inside and outside the classroom in order to help the students with their learning process. So those were the most important concepts we took in consideration in this research, and I'm going to continue with the very important theory, which is the second language acquisition theory we took in consideration by our main author of this investigation, which is Stephen Krashen. He created the monitor model hypothesis, which is described by 5 different hypotheses, which I'm going to explain in a very brief way. The first one, it is the acquisition learning hypothesis, and this one describes the process of the acquisition of the language and what is the difference between acquisition and learning, which is, for the first one, acquisition is the unconscious knowledge that we obtain in informal settings. On the other hand, learning, it is the conscious knowledge that we obtain about the rules and the forms of the language, for example, in an English class. The second one, it is monitor hypothesis, which is, it talks about the learner having a natural conversation, and it says that they can edit or change the mistakes they made. The number 3, which is the natural hypothesis, it refers that there is a sequence on this to learn a second language, and this sequence, the steps that we follow on this sequence, they can be predictable. That's why when we have an English class, we have different levels, and we start from the bottom. That's why we start with the easiest, and then we go for the most difficult. The input hypothesis, it mentions that the learner has to be exposed to the language, and this language has to be comprehensible. However, it has to be a little bit beyond their proficiency level. So it has to be comprehensible, but they have to learn something new. And the last one, which is the affective filter hypothesis, it just refers, like the name, it says that there are several factors that affect negatively on the acquisition of the learning, on the acquisition of the language. I mean, an example of this can be the anxiety, the lack of motivation, the lack of confidence, etc. Another important approach that we mention in this research, it is the English for specific purposes, which it is an English course for specific academic or professional purposes. An example of this one are the classes that students from the majors of tourism and administration take, but not the English classes, but the classes with content of the major, and they are not learning English, but they are learning the content of the major through the language, which in this case is English. The approach number three is communicative language teaching approach. This one, it talks about the development of the communicative competence, but in a meaningful way for the students. And last but not least, I'm going to mention 3 of the main previous studies that are related with this topic. The first one, it is about bilingual educators' contribution by Hopkins in 2013. The findings of this research show that teachers often use the first language of the students and the class, because students like to feel more comfortable using their first language. However, teachers give opportunities to the students to use authentic language. And this is something that is related with the results that my classmate is going to give. The next previous study, it is about teachers' perceptions in promoting the willingness to communicate. This one mentioned that teachers agree on the idea that they should encourage students in order to speak English. And they can use different techniques, for example, warm-up strategies, group cohesiveness, and topic choice. The last one, it is about perceptions and problems of English language, and this is about how students perceive themselves on their 4 skills that my classmate already mentioned. And the results show that the students perceive themselves worst at speaking, and also they perceive writing as at a very poor level. Also, this is related with the results that my classmate Ariana is going to give.
Okay, so to continue on, I'm going to present to you our methodology, which was conducted by a qualitative method approach, which we wanted to gather the perspectives, opinion, and beliefs of our participants, which were students of the majors of administration, tourism, and accountancy, also 3 coordinators and 3 teachers from the same fields. Our instruments, we used semi-structured interviews with coordinators, face-to-face questionnaires with students and teachers, and a documental analysis. We made this documental analysis to provide some strategies to the teachers in order to use this in their English classes. Okay, so our results, we found that teachers expressed that they use English, that they use the language in a significant way outside the classroom, and they also use authentic resources. But they also had a contradiction, mentioning that they could not demand something to students because they could not offer to them. And also coordinators mentioned that they encourage students to take English classes since the beginning, and that they also tell the teachers to enhance the students to take the English courses. And talking about students, we found out that half of the students who take the questionnaires, they would like to have their subjects in English because they want to master the language, they want to become a well-prepared person to find a better job. And well, as we have seen through this presentation, students need to be exposed to real experiences to learn about their fields, and that's where it comes to documental analysis. We found these strategies, and we want this to be proposed for the teachers to use them in their classrooms. So therefore, vocabulary, interaction, complex instruction, and everyday context. Okay, with this, the focus is to adapt the content to the second language. What do I mean? For example, in the tourism field, we want that the teachers get the content and then develop vocabulary, take the students to interact between them, to get the students to have academic vocabulary and academic resources such as articles, and then they could also relate this to their everyday context. And well, as a conclusion, bilingualism is not promoted enough between students, coordinators, or teachers. And even though that teachers use English material and that they use the English language in their classes, most of the students don't visualize themselves in a classroom using English language. So that's why we came with the conclusion that students should be motivated to learn and to use English language. Why? Because this aspect is very important when they go out to the labor market. And also that teachers should be prepared to teach a whole class in English. And well, that's all from our part.
Bueno, a manera de sobre la actividad, ¿alguien me podría decir en una manera muy general de qué se trató la presentación? Sí, adelante.
¿Cómo los maestros y coordinadores deberían de promover el inglés? Dar a nosotros como estudiantes a practicarlo y estudiarlo, pero que también ellos estén preparados para podernos enseñar temas relacionados con nuestra carrera en inglés para poder ir al ambiente laboral más preparados? Porque creo que saber inglés, o sea, es bueno, pero también hay cosas que tal vez no sepamos en aspectos laborales relacionados con el inglés, entonces creo que eso sí sería muy efectivo.
Sí, muy bien, esa es una de las ideas principales en el estudio. Bueno, muchas gracias. Ahora sí, los voy a invitar, por favor, que ahora cuenten el número de palabras. Cuenten las palabras que apuntaron, que conocen, por favor. ¿Sí? ¿Listos? Ok, fue un trabajo en parejas. ¿Ok? ¿Me pueden dar números, por favor? ¿Cuántas palabras? ¿Aquí? ¿No? 8. 10. A ver, vamos allá atrás. ¿No? Aquí adelante, ¿cuántas palabras? 89. Ok, ¿cuántas? 70. ¿Alguien que tenga más de eso? 80. Tenemos 89, 80. ¿Perdón? 126. 123. ¿Alguien más? ¿Allá atrás? ¿Más de eso? Sí. 78. Bueno, ¿a qué voy con esto? Que por mucho que porque eso es un comentario, es un sentir general de que, no, pues es que yo no puedo tomar una clase en inglés porque pues no sé, no se me da, me bloqueo, sí lo puedo leer o lo puedo entender, pero al momento de hablarlo o de escribir, y principalmente de hablarlo, pues no puedo, me bloqueo, etcétera. Entonces, el ejercicio, el mensaje es, chicos, que no están en ceros, ¿sí? Porque inclusive ustedes están tomando clases de inglés obligatorios. Ahora, este es una presentación académica enfocada a una investigación sobre el uso de inglés en diferentes carreras aquí en la universidad. Así es que no van en ceros. Y muchas veces creemos que sabemos muy poco inglés y eso es una limitante hasta psicológica para poder desarrollarnos en una segunda lengua. ¿Sí? Entonces, para aquellos que, ¿cuál fue el máximo número de palabras? 123. Bueno, a ellos les tenemos un premio, ¿sí? Es un par de tarjetas de regalo de Starbucks para que se vayan a tomar un cafecito. Uh-huh. Bueno, ahora vamos a la siguiente actividad, ¿sí? Vamos a la siguiente presentación. Es el segundo grupo de estudiantes que está presentando su proyecto de investigación. Y ahora sí, la tarea va a ser un poquito más compleja, pero obviamente el premio va a ser mayor, ¿sí? Bueno, la tarea ese es el proyecto de investigación. Y van a apuntar en las hojas que les dimos, por favor. Apúntenle, por favor. ¿De qué se trata la investigación? ¿Sí? 1 o 2 objetivos de la misma. La metodología, resultados y conclusión. ¿Sí? Entonces, el que tenga mayor número de información, la pareja que tenga mayor número de información en cuanto a estos rubros de la investigación, pues obviamente va a ser el ganador. Así es que, pues es una investigación enfocada al campo del turismo y los negocios. ¿Ok? Así es que, adelante. Vamos a recibirlos con un aplauso, por favor.
Okay, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yes? Okay. Good morning, everyone. We are the second team to present our research project. Our research project is called High School Business and Tourism Training Course Evaluation. So I hope you like it. So let's start with the first. Can you go back, please? Okay, as our classmates already mentioned, the first team mentioned, English is a very important language nowadays. But at a business level and at a tourism level, English, it's the most important language. And we know that we live in a border region. We live in border and we are in touch with a lot of companies. There's a lot of companies that do negotiations, and most of those negotiations are made in English. So that's why English is so important in the business sector, in the tourism sector. However, we found out that bilingualism here in the border region, even though we're near to United States, there's a low percentage of bilingualism here in the city. So that's what inspired us to do this investigation. Next one, please. We basically made an investigation in a high school. Was carried out in Colegio de Bachilleres here in Ciudad Juárez. Why? I'll tell you later. This is a Mexican public high school here in Ciudad Juárez. And here in Bachilleres, there's I don't know if you know, but there's a training course modality from 4 to 6 semester. What this means that the students there in Bachilleres are trained from 4 to 6 semester in a training course called Inglés Empresarial y Turístico. When these students graduate from high school, they are expected to graduate with abilities and skills so they can work in the tourism and the business sector. And these students we worked with, they had different proficiency levels. So that's basically the focus of our investigation, was focused in Colegio de Bachilleres, public Mexican high school. Okay, what was the problem we found out? Well, we found out that in 2012, according to Secatur, the tourism sector only made up 2.55% of the gross domestic product. That is a very low percentage in comparison with other income sources. And besides that, we noticed that there's staff here in companies that can communicate with foreign customers in English. They don't have this ability. So we wanted to know, after that, our 3 research questions were, to what extent does the Inglés Empresarial y Turístico training course content cover the linguistic needs of the tourism sector here in Ciudad Juárez? What are the needs of this sector here in the city? Then, to what extent does the methodology used in that training course and the Inglés Empresarial y Turístico training course aligns with the objectives stipulated in their syllabus? Finally, how suitable will the English for specific business purposes teaching approach be for the accomplishment of the language learning objectives of this training course, of the Inglés Empresarial and Turístico training course? So our study was delimited, as we already mentioned, in Colegio de Bachilleres institution here in Ciudad Juárez, but more specifically, we made our investigation in Colegio de Bachilleres Plantel 19. We worked with 5th semester students of the Inglés Empresarial y Turístico training program. And finally, we worked with business and tourism facilities. Those were Maria Bonita Hotel, Mesa Luna Hotel, La Diana Restaurant, and Los Angeles Hospital. Okay, so I'll let you with my next partner, Lupita.
Good morning. To continue, I'm going to present the literature review, which, can you hear me? Yes, which includes concept, main authors, and approaches. So the main authors that we consider for this research, the first one is David Noonan, that has published over 100 articles about curriculum design and curriculum development. The second one is Jake C. Richard, that is an author that we have seen in the major because he has doing research on language teaching methodologies. To continue for the concepts, the first concept is model. A model is the basis of any approach, and there are 2 types of model. Process model that focus on the experiential learning, and product model that focus on the learning process itself. And then the syllabus, that according to Brennan, Carter, and Noonan in 2001, a syllabus is, it describes what is to be accomplished, what is need to be accomplished, and they have 4 elements: aims, content, methodology, and evaluation. Then we have the English for specific purposes. That is as my classmate said before, is a methodology that is focused on a specific technical vocabulary. Then we have 2 approaches. The first one is a specialist approach that is also known as a top-down process. And the learners here are considered as a passive authors on the learning teaching process. Whereas the learner-centered approach, also known as a bottom process, considers the learners as a key participants in the English teaching process.
Now, following with other authors that we approach in order to be able to know more, to become more knowledgeable about what the phenomena that we were going to encounter are, we have in the first place Esther Benke, who conducted a study similar to us with the purpose of exploring the foreign language activities that employees working in business, specifically finance and hospitality in Hungary, often encounter. The results of this specific study pointed out that the most frequent activities are professional conversations in the workplace about work-related topics, collaboration and informal communication with those same partners. So it is more localized in comparison to what it is that we were trying to approach, but we still needed other studies, prior studies, in order to become more knowledgeable about the phenomena that we were going to encounter. Now, the next author is Liao, who carried out in 2017 a research project to explore the basic English language skills needed in the international tourism industry. This has to do more so with skills that have to do with language, with functions carried out through the language, through the use of language, instead of just merely the language itself. And so the results pointed out that, according to the participants, speaking is the most important skill, of course, and the use of terms and expressions associated with hotel work is the most important function. In addition, the participants expressed that the most valuable writing task is to write short messages to provide communication, to provide information to their peers or other organisms within the same industry, within the same company. Now, next, we are going to tell you about the methodology. And so one of the most important aspects of our research project is evaluative research design, which was used as a method in order to acquire information, to gather information in order for us to analyze. And in this study, this specific approach was most suitable in order to conduct the project, due to the fact that this is, for the most part, a qualitative research project in nature. And so we then compare the information that we then gather in order to then analyze it with certain other instruments that we created, or we at least modified. So the next is an example of this same, of the instruments that we used in order to then gather this same information. In the first place, we gather information by means of using a face-to-face interview, semi-structured interview with managers of hotels, restaurants, and also hospitals. And we did research in terms of the linguistic needs of the tourism sector overall with those managers. Afterwards, we then conducted an observation in the same bachilleres institution where the Ingles Empresarial y Turístico program is being offered. And we conducted this specific instrument with the students and teachers. And we wanted to gather information in regards to the alignment of the methodology with the objectives, which actually means that we just wanted to then compare or at least explore what the methodology was, or at least specific goals and purposes and objectives that they had in theory, and then to see whether or not in practice, by analyzing the same document and also the application of the methodology that they used, whether or not it was coherent, whether or not it actually made sense. And so we lastly, by means of analyzing and researching articles, which is basically documentary research that we carried throughout the entirety of the program, of our research project, we wanted to then find out whether or not it was the specific approach of English for specific business purposes actually was suitable in order to then carry out the goals, to fulfill the goals of the program. Now, we are going to then, talk to you about more specific detail, how is it that we conducted and the samples themselves. And the first one, in the first case, it was 2 human research managers from Maria Bonita Hotel and Barrigas Restaurant. And so what information they provides us was that knowledge about the language skills and the overall profile of the tourism employees that they require to perform specific functions in English as a second language. Then, in the 5th semester, we then carried out our instrument with 5th semester students of the Inglés Empresarial y Turístico training course, and the teacher, of course, in order to have a direct involvement with the Inglés Empresarial y Turístico training course, in order to be able to explore the course itself as it was being actually conducted, to find insight as to what it is that they were actually doing inside of the classroom. Now, after analyzing the information that we gathered from the samples with our instruments, we then came to certain conclusions. The first one was that the most prominent language function in the tourism sector, which are providing information, such as asking for directions and also recommendations, are only being partially covered by the program itself. They are not, it is there, technically it is included in the program, but it is not actually the main focus. It is just a small part, even though technically the same skills are the most important functions that need to be carried out in the field, in the tourism sector. Now, the next finding was that the mechanical activities and the content being implemented in a training course do not align with the goals of communicative nature stipulated by institution. Now, this means that they are technically envisioning goals that are communicative in nature. They technically want students to carry out functions, to technically approach the business and tourism sector with the language, through the use of the language. In theory, of course, because in practice, this is not the case inside of the classroom. They are not actually using methodologies or content that actually approach things from a communicative standpoint. It is more mechanical. It is more about training them to memorize, or in order to identify language that technically is relevant in the tourism sector, but not actually approach it by communicating with these same people who are working inside of it or are part of the tourism sector itself. Now, the next and last finding was that while the main goals of the training course are, in theory, covered coherent with the guiding principles of the ESBP approach, the methodology implemented in the course to achieve these goals contradicts the purpose of the program. This has to do technically with what I previously mentioned, but this goes more so into the SBP, which is the English for specific business purposes, which is the most relevant methodology nowadays being implemented in this kind of training courses. And the thing is that we then, after comparing the methodology, the guiding principles, the general principles and theory, we end with the practice or with the methodology that was being utilized inside of the course itself. We encounter that this is to an extent the most ideal, the SBP approach. However, in order to apply it, however, it is not actually aligned in almost any way. They are not actually following along with these same principles, which we consider to be important. And so we then have certain recommendations that we would like to make in order for this to improve. And so the first one would be to offer the teachers an introductory course in the CLT approach that was formally mentioned by my colleagues, which is the communicative language teaching approach for teachers in order to become more acquainted with the communicative functions that we are talking about. The goal itself also should be of the program to instead of just teaching learners about speaking itself or words in English, in the English language, and also how to write in the English language, they should allow them to develop a communicative competency, which is basically using the 4 skills, which is writing, speaking, listening, and also speaking, listening, writing, and reading. In order to communicate, not just to know the language itself, but in order for them to also communicate in more practical ways. And so we concluded that the main focus of the training course should be assisting students, as I mentioned, in these same tasks. The content itself should have to do with the current events that are happening or trends that are currently relevant in the tourism and business sector. And they should reach out to maybe these same people that we interviewed in order to be able to actually stay up to date in regards to the content itself and the functions that are required in the business and tourism sector, in the field out there in practice. And so the methodology of the program should be based on activities and also content that enable them to develop this same competency of speaking and listening, which are the most important skills being used nowadays in the tourism sector. And these are our references, and so we would like to thank you for your time. And this is it for our team. Thank you again.
Bueno, muchas gracias a los alumnos participantes ahora en este segmento. Y pues bueno, lo prometido es deuda. Por favor, tienen ahí sus hojas. Es un trabajo en parejas, pongan su nombre por favor, lo van a entregar. Con la información que lograron obtener. Y pues bueno, vamos a revisar sus escritos y al terminar la siguiente participación, la conferencia, vamos a dar a conocer los ganadores, ¿sí? Entonces, por favor, nos entregan acá con los estudiantes sus hojas con sus nombres. Es una hoja por pareja. Bueno, y pues el premio consiste en lo siguiente. Es una invitación ahora en la noche a cenar en el restaurante Shangri-La. Van a estar allí. Ay, gracias, muy amable. Ok, aquí están los pases, ¿verdad? Además de estar, pues obviamente, tener una cena deliciosa allí, pues la gran ventaja es que van a estar conviviendo con los ponentes de la Catedra Patrimonial. Así es que, pues, en unos momentos más, vamos a dar a conocer los ganadores de estos dos pases a la cena en el Shangri-La, ¿sí? Bueno, muchachos, pues con esto cerramos. Muchas gracias por su atención, por su participación, y los invitamos, tanto los alumnos de la Licenciatura en Enseñanza del Inglés como una servidora, para que trabajen en esta habilidad lingüística que les abrirá puertas no únicamente en lo profesional, también en lo personal, ¿sí? Así es que los invito a que realmente se pongan las pilas, se involucren con el idioma, porque como decimos en inglés, sooner or later, tarde o temprano, lo van a necesitar, ¿sí? Gracias, muy amables.